Hey guys, this is Mike. I was talking to a friend the other day about investments and we got into a heated discussion, He has a very critical view of Bitcoin while I see things differently. And I confess that this conversation made me a little uncomfortable. It made me think, could I be wrong on some points? Could there be something I'm not seeing? That's when I decided to make this video. I have two goals here. First, to clarify some ideas about Bitcoin and gold, because there's a lot of stuff we hear out there that simply doesn't make sense. And second, I want to hear your opinion. If you disagree with something I say or think I'm talking nonsense, comment below. It'll be really cool to be able to discuss this with you and, who knows, change your mind too. So let's get started. Let's start by talking about some things I've heard about gold. First, I've always heard that gold is one of the safest assets out there. It's common to hear that in times of crisis, gold is a safe haven, right? It seems like it never fails. In gold, you don't lose money. This is a classic. Especially among older people, they say that gold is a guaranteed protection where there are no losses, as if it were a risk-free bet. We should buy gold to protect ourselves from crises. The idea of buying gold to protect ourselves from crises always comes up in conversations about economics. The narrative is that when the world is on fire, gold is the salvation. Gold is better than Bitcoin. And of course, there's always someone saying that gold is far superior to Bitcoin, that it's more stable, more reliable, and that Bitcoin is just a passing fad. Now let's start implanting discord. I'm going to tell the truth based on facts here. Please don't get mad. If you think my arguments are fallacious, comment below what's wrong. But let's get to the truth. First is, gold provides false security. Gold is not as safe as it seems. It is controlled by governments and has little mobility. If you need to travel with gold, you can end up in serious trouble. One example was Executive Order 6102 in the US, which basically confiscated the population's gold. Imagine the government forcing you to hand over your gold. Gold confiscation has happened before, and nothing prevents it from happening again. And if you try to travel with a significant amount of gold, depending on the country, you will be questioned and run the risk of having your gold confiscated. This is dangerous in an authoritarian government that for some reason decides that its citizens can no longer use gold. What are you going to do with gold in this situation? You can lose money with gold. The truth is that you can lose money with gold just like with any other asset. Between 2011 and 2015, for example, gold lost 40% of its value. Those who bought it in 2011 only managed to get out of the red in 2020. 9 years waiting to recover what they lost. Is it worth it? Gold does not work in times of crash. In times of crisis, gold is not as efficient as they say. In 2008, during the housing crisis, gold fell almost 40%, while the S&P 500 fell 60%. Can an asset that falls 40% still be considered a good asset for crises? Now let's make a direct comparison with Bitcoin. Which is better, gold or Bitcoin? Let's see. Is gold safer? When it comes to security, Bitcoin wins hands down. Bitcoin is yours and no one can take it. As for gold, anyone can break into your house or even the government can confiscate it. You can trade Bitcoin anonymously if you want, while gold is impossible. If you have physical gold, you will have to trade face-to-face. You will have to make contact with someone. That is, your anonymity is violated. In addition, of course, you carry Bitcoin with you. You can travel all over the world and you don't have to worry about anyone stopping you and questioning you about your money. Is gold more stable than Bitcoin? It depends on what you consider stable. Gold has much longer cycles. Those who bought gold in 2011 had to wait 9 years until 2020 to avoid losing money. As for Bitcoin, those who bought it at its peak in 2021 are already back in profit in 2024 in just 3 years. In which of the two scenarios would you face a greater risk of losing money? Purchasing gold at its peak in 2011, which then declines for 9 years, or buying Bitcoin at its peak in 2021, which then declines for 3 years? Gold is not as stable as they say. It just has slower cycles. If you look at the gold chart, you will see several ugly drops. This narrative for buying at the top is, I will protect myself from the crisis by buying gold, maybe, but only if you buy gold well in advance. If you are buying now, you may be buying at the top. In times of crisis, what people do is sell gold and run to the dollar. An example is the COVID crash. Those who bought gold in January 2020 when the virus was discovered ended up at a loss when the crisis really hit. When it comes to liquidity, Bitcoin appears less favorable. During the COVID crash, gold prices dropped by 10%, while Bitcoin plummeted by 50%. Bitcoin recovered from the COVID crash in 47 days, whereas gold bounced back in just 25 days. However, is it truly wise to bet on gold when Bitcoin's post-crash recovery is almost guaranteed? Crashes are fleeting, typically lasting less than a year, yet the bullish phases for Bitcoin extend over several years. Now let's move on to criticisms about Bitcoin and talks about Bitcoin being insecure. They will hack Bitcoin with a quantum computer. One of the things that a lot of people say is that quantum computers will hack Bitcoin. But here's the reality. If one day we get to the point where we can hack the blockchain with this technology, Bitcoin will be the least of our problems. Do you know why? Because basically every system we use today will also be at risk. The security systems of governments, banks, hospitals, everything that uses cryptography, which is the same technology as Bitcoin, would be vulnerable. So, in this scenario, it's not just Bitcoin that would be at risk, but the entire digital world. And most importantly, when we get close to something like this, Bitcoin will update its technology, like any other system around the world. Decentralization and open source are great allies for this evolution. This is a classic, just turn off the internet or the energy. It seems like a simple solution, right? But have you ever stopped to think about what would happen if the whole world lost the internet? Today, governments depend on the internet for practically everything. How would the stock market work, for example, without the internet? It would be complete chaos. Without the internet, the global economy practically stops. There's no way to go back to the old pen and paper system, right? In addition, new alternatives are emerging, such as Starlink, which is an example of satellite internet that could keep Bitcoin and other networks running. And over time, more technologies will appear. Turning off the internet is no longer a viable option. Governments will ban. There's always that idea that governments will ban Bitcoin and that's it. It's all over. But let's be honest, governments can barely deal with the dark web. With technologies like Onion, you can access websites that commit horrible crimes, and yet they're still there. Banning Bitcoin wouldn't be easy. Bitcoin is decentralized. As long as there are a handful of computers spread around the world running the network, Bitcoin will continue to work. In addition, there are countless tools that mask IP addresses, not to mention VPNs. Bitcoin was created precisely in a scenario of resistance to governments, so it's not as simple as ban it and that's it. In fact, Bitcoin has already been banned several times. The most recent example is Nigeria, but people there continue to use it. Banning it in theory is one thing, in practice it's a different story. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Another widely used argument is that Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. But what gives things value in the end? What people believe, what they consider important. And Bitcoin has several types of value that go beyond the tangible. Value of freedom. The value of being able to have an asset that is yours and no one can take it away from you. This is financial freedom, something that many people value. Community value. Bitcoin has a huge community that believes in and supports the network, which gives the project immense strength. Reliability value. The Bitcoin network is considered one of the most reliable. It has been operating since 2009 without a single significant interruption. If you have any doubts about the network, just check it out. Value for being the most well-known asset in the modern world. And we cannot forget the fact that Bitcoin is the most well-known digital asset in the modern world, being part of modern culture. Our grandchildren will probably be studying Bitcoin. I hear this a lot. At any time, the creators can steal from everyone. This fear that the creators of Bitcoin can steal everything at any time is another myth. Bitcoin's code is open source. Anyone can check it for anything suspicious. If you know anything about programming, you can go in there and check it. And even though the original creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, has a huge amount of Bitcoin, he still has less than 5% of all the Bitcoin that has ever been mined. If he decided to sell everything at once, of course the price would drop in the short term, but the market would adjust and recover. It's a robust system like that. Now let's get to the facts. These are my conclusions. You can agree or disagree. I'd love to hear from you. You can also curse me if you want, of course. Here are the facts. First, Bitcoin is safer than gold for a number of reasons. So when it comes to security, Bitcoin is safer than gold for a number of reasons. Bitcoin is digital, easier to move around, and cannot be confiscated like gold was in the past. Second, Bitcoin is great for periods of high liquidity and gold is terrible. Bitcoin is also great for periods of high liquidity where you can buy and sell quickly. Gold, on the other hand, is much less efficient at these times. For some reason, money is not rushing into gold, which has caused it to lag behind in the last bull market cycle. People seem to see more promise in Bitcoin than in gold. That's the fact. In times of crash, both gold and Bitcoin would fall, Bitcoin more. Now, it is true that in times of crisis, both gold and Bitcoin tend to fall. However, Bitcoin may fall faster precisely because it is more volatile in the short term. But this also means that it tends to recover faster. In the long run, Bitcoin has proven to be a better choice because it is more efficient and because technology evolves along with it. It is not bound by physical limitations like gold. If you're buying gold now to protect yourself from a crisis, it may be too late. Often this means that the price of gold has already peaked. At such times, it may be better to hold on to dollars and wait for the right moment. And now the last one, after the crisis risk drops, buy Bitcoin immediately. Now, as soon as the risk of the crisis starts to decrease, the tip is to buy Bitcoin as soon as possible. But I'll tell you, I prefer to buy it today because we never know what might happen tomorrow. This was my video. Thank you very much to everyone who spent their precious time here with this questionable content. If you like my opinion, subscribe. If you didn't, subscribe too so you can insult me in the next video. Write a comment. It helps a lot. Mike here. Bye.